Have you ever wondered what it was like to be a teenage superstar, rushing home from a day on set only to wake up before dawn to do it all again? Today, we're stepping back in time to explore Judy Garland's Los Angeles home during the filming of her most iconic role, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. We'll peek behind the curtains of her life when she was still very much a young girl living under her mother's watchful eye, yet simultaneously a rising sensation whose voice and spirit captivated the entire world. In the late 1930s, Judy was still known to her family by her birth name, Frances Gumm, though she'd already adopted the stage name Judy Garland. By the time production on The Wizard of Oz began, she was only 16 years old, juggling strict filming schedules and a longing for normal teenage experiences. While much of her time was spent at MGM's studios in Culver City, her refuge was a comfortable home in the Los Angeles area, a place that, despite Judy's blossoming fame, offered glimpses of a regular family life. Locals referred to it as a charming bungalow, though it was more spacious than one might imagine, with a neatly trimmed front lawn, a cozy porch, and just the right amount of Hollywood flair to hint that someone special lived inside. When you stepped through the front door, you'd enter a bright living room with polished hardwood floors and warm pastel walls. The space was tastefully furnished in the late 1930s style, delicate floral patterns on armchairs, lace curtains fluttering at the windows, and a plush couch where Judy's mother, Ethel, would often sit to review Judy's demanding schedule. The walls were adorned with family photographs and the occasional movie poster, though not as many as you'd expect for someone quickly becoming one of MGM's biggest stars. There was an understated sense of pride, balanced by the fact that Judy's family was determined to keep her grounded in an industry known for its excess. One particular photo often caught guests' attention, a framed snapshot of a very young Judy, eyes sparkling, wearing a wide grin. It was taken shortly after the studio signed her under a long-term contract. Even then, you could see the promise in that face. Friends who visited reported that the living room was always filled with music. Judy grew up surrounded by musical influences. She'd burst into song at the slightest prompting, and in those rare moments of downtime, she'd curl up on the couch or near the upright piano in the corner, humming a tune while leafing through sheet music. A short hallway connected the living room to a modest dining area. Here, the furniture was traditional, with a dark wooden dining table and matching chairs that seated 6. Judy's mother insisted on family meals when Judy wasn't required at the studio. Those dinners might include everything from fresh produce from the local market to dishes that Ethel prepared according to old family recipes. It was a chance for Judy and her 2 older sisters to sit down, exchange stories, and maintain some sense of routine. At the same time, there was a quiet tension. Judy's career was skyrocketing, and Ethel was determined to guide her teenage daughter on a path to stardom, sometimes with strict discipline that aimed to keep her focused. Just beyond the dining room was a quaint kitchen, white cabinetry, checkered linoleum floors, and a little window over the sink that let in the afternoon sun. Unlike the elaborate kitchens you might see in the homes of other film stars, this one was surprisingly unpretentious. It reflected Ethel's practical nature. Judy often mentioned how she appreciated the feeling of normalcy there. She'd help prepare small meals or wash dishes on the weekends, taking a break from her hectic schedule. Standing at the sink, she could hear birds outside and occasionally catch the sound of distant traffic, a subtle reminder that Hollywood's bustling world was never too far away. Up a short flight of stairs, you'd come to Judy's bedroom, a retreat that at first glance seemed like any other teenage girl's room of the period. There was a cozy twin bed, dressed in floral patterned sheets and topped with a few decorative pillows. A vanity stood in one corner, cluttered with hairbrushes, perfume bottles, and stage makeup from the studio. Above it hung a mirror framed with small bulbs, reminiscent of a backstage dressing room. In another corner, a sturdy writing desk held diaries, letters from friends, and fan mail. Judy tried to respond to as many admirers as she could, though her schedule often made it nearly impossible. She'd find time in the early mornings or late at night to scribble a quick thank you note. Sometimes she'd read the letters aloud to her mother, smiling at the sweet words from fans who were falling in love with her voice and her earnest portrayal of Dorothy. The closet door was usually ajar, and inside hung not only Judy's everyday clothes, simple skirts, blouses, and a few modest dresses, but also the occasional costume piece from her recent roles. Sometimes shoes for a dance routine sat next to a pair of everyday flats. It was a charming mishmash that reminded you this was a home shared by a girl who lived two lives, teenager by night, Hollywood star by day. If you listened carefully, you might even hear Judy softly singing the iconic Over the Rainbow as she prepared for bed. She famously recorded that song for The Wizard of Oz, and it resonated deeply with her, reflecting her own hopes of finding somewhere safe and free from the pressures she faced at such a young age. Another fascinating part of the home was a small den just off the living room, sometimes referred to as the music room. It had a smaller piano than the one in the living area, as well as a radio set where Judy's family would gather to hear the latest broadcasts, including some of Judy's own radio appearances. The walls featured a few bold musical prints and playbills from shows she'd starred in prior to Oz. In one corner, there was a stack of 78 RPM records, songs Judy performed, as well as recordings of her favorite artists. She was known for being a bit of a night owl, and on evenings, when she didn't have an early call, she might linger here, listening to music or working on vocal exercises. Despite her youth, Judy was already a seasoned performer who took her craft seriously. Friends of the family often commented on how inviting the home felt, despite the rigor of Judy's career. Even the yard had its charms. A small garden with blooming roses, a paved walkway lined with potted plants, and a bird bath that provided a haven for sparrows and finches. On rare weekends, Judy enjoyed relaxing out there with a glass of lemonade, sometimes singing a few bars of a new tune, sometimes just being a teenager surrounded by blossoming flowers instead of studio lights. One unforgettable story tells of her celebrating a small private wrap party for the Wizard of Oz right there in that garden with her sisters, her mother, and a couple of close friends. They toasted her achievement with root beer floats, all of them giddy from the excitement of the film and Judy's performance. It was a moment of carefree laughter before stepping back into the spotlight once more. But as much as this house felt like a haven, it also bore witness to the mounting pressures Judy faced. MGM expected constant perfection, memorable performances, an unwavering image of sweetness and vitality. The studio famously put Judy on a strict diet and a regimented schedule, determined to maintain the wholesome look of her Dorothy character. There were times when she'd come home exhausted, longing to simply rest in her own bed, free from the heavy stage makeup and camera lenses. Yet in the morning, she'd rise early and, with her mother's encouragement, head back to fulfill the day's obligations. People who visited could sense that the household was both proud of and somewhat overwhelmed by the breakneck pace of Judy's career. Occasionally, colleagues from the set or influential Hollywood figures would drop by. Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM, reportedly came for tea once, discussing future projects and praising Judy's vocal prowess. The day Ray Bolger, the Scarecrow, and Jack Haley, the Tin Man, visited for a quick lunchtime meeting as part of the family lore. They apparently had a good laugh, reminiscing about behind-the-scenes antics, sharing stories about on-set mishaps and costume challenges. Judy was especially fond of Ray Bolger's warm personality and dancing talent, and she beamed with pride as her mother played hostess, offering sandwiches and homemade cookies. Those gatherings had the potential to be dazzling, but they also reminded Judy that her home life and her work life were never truly separate. Her cozy living room could be turned into an impromptu meeting space, her den into a musical rehearsal room. Yet for every intrusion by studio executives, there were happier visits from close friends like Mickey Rooney, whose boyish charm and endless jokes kept everyone laughing. He and Judy had formed a genuine friendship, having co-starred in numerous MGM projects together. She cherished those casual chats in her own home, away from the polished sets and carefully choreographed publicity events. Over time, though, this house became a sort of time capsule for Judy Garland's youth during one of the most pivotal moments in Hollywood history. It served as her comforting anchor while she filmed a movie that would remain a classic for generations to come. Within these walls, she honed not only her craft, but also her resilience, a quiet determination that would carry her through triumphs and heartbreaks alike in the years ahead. Today, the home itself has likely undergone renovations, changed ownership, and modernized with each passing decade. Gone are the original floral wallpaper and the secondhand piano. Yet if you ever passed by, you could almost picture Judy at the window, young and hopeful, maybe humming a tune from The Wizard of Oz, maybe daydreaming about the next role she'd play. There's a kind of magic in knowing that behind the scenes of one of the most beloved films ever made, a teenage girl lived here, navigating the complexities of fame with the same mixture of excitement and vulnerability that any teenager would have. So what do you think? Does Judy Garland's modest yet welcoming home life during The Wizard of Oz filming surprise you? Can you imagine the contrast of stepping off the vibrant Technicolor set and into this sanctuary of normalcy? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if these glimpses into Hollywood's golden era spark your curiosity, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We'll keep exploring the homes and backstories of classic stars, uncovering the heartwarming details that made them who they were, both on screen and off. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, remember that every star once had a home they called their own, a place where even the brightest lights could find a moment of quiet rest.